Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a quick moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network that I think you'll love. Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager is your ultimate guide to understanding the do's, don'ts, and complexities of the higher ed social media ecosystem. Host Jenny Lee Fowler from MIT brings her expertise and passion for social media to the table. Each episode offers a deep dive into real-world examples, dissecting what worked, what didn't, and identifying valuable lessons along the way. You'll get the key insights and tips to help you elevate your own social media game. Make sure your social media efforts hit the mark every time. Subscribe to Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or search for it wherever you love to listen to podcasts.
Welcome to The Application, a podcast focused on actionable takeaways to help you level up your marketing and enrollment management game. I'm your host, Dr. Allison Turcio, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. Join me every Tuesday for discussions with some of the best minds in higher ed marketing and enrollment management. The Application is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal faves linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Hey everyone! On this episode, we're joined by Christina Inge, the Online Infrastructure Manager at the Brandeis University Innovation Center, to discuss how making university websites more engaging and inclusive can help combat declining enrollments. Christina's at the forefront of utilizing digital media and learning design to create welcoming, engaging websites for a wide range of stakeholders. Christina, welcome to the show.
Hey, Allison, it is so good to see you again because we've met before, haven't we?
We have, and I'm going to have a little fangirl moment right now because I have seen Christina speak at a session that our university, Northeastern University, we were in the same program there, and I got to hear Christina speak at a session, and I've actually had Christina's textbook on marketing analytics on my desk for many, many months. So here we are, got you as a guest on the podcast. Super excited to have you.
Well, Allison, it is so great to be here, and I'm always excited when people have read my book, Marketing Analytics from Flat World Publishing, because it was a true labor of love, and it's so wonderful to hear when it's useful. And frankly, you're just so excited when you've written a book that anyone's read it at all.
Well, and what I remember you saying is that you were teaching a course or this topic within a course, and you weren't finding what you needed to be able to give the students, their knowledge. And so there wasn't a textbook. So you thought to yourself, I will fill that gap. That's my memory of it. Am I right?
You're exactly right. I basically thought, I'd rather than hunting down dozens of articles all over the web, why don't I just write something? And that will give me the ability to teach my class with less work, more work up front, obviously to write the book, but less work eventually because I'll have this handy dandy book. It has proven to be the case, actually. So it's one of those few cases where you put in the work in advance and it does save you time.
And you're not on a third book now that you're working on?
I am on a third book, yes. And it's at this point that I can say safely that I have no chill. I have no chill because I am now working on a third book.
while in school,
while
because
in
you're still in the
school.
Northeastern program that I graduated from last year, while teaching at multiple schools, while having your full-time admin position that you've got at the Innovation Center. Yeah, you definitely have no chill.
No chill, no chill at all. Although I have to, a quick correction, my admin position at Brandeis is part-time. It's 20 hours a week.
Part-time. Still, stack
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that
no, no,
together,
no.
and I'm pretty sure you're working 4 or 5 full-time jobs. So we're really lucky that you had time to join us on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you. And truly, Christina is an expert in this space. So I'm so excited to dive in and be able to get her insights on understanding how we can make university websites more engaging and inclusive to solve some of our big challenges that we have as marketers. So let's start there. You know, the enrollment cliff is one of those big nuts, one of those big challenges that all of us are facing. What is going to be the role of a university's website in attracting students as we embark on this period of demographic decline?
I think the website is going to be critical. Students' first touch point with a university is often the website. It's often, sure, it can be an enrollment fair, or it can be through a guidance counselor, but ultimately, students are going to our websites and they're determining whether to enroll or not, oftentimes based on the experience that they have on the website, the content that they see, but also just the general feeling that they get from engaging with us online. Do I feel welcomed here? Does this website make me feel like I could belong at the university that I'm thinking about? And so it's not just throwing a lot of great content onto a web page and hoping that that's going to attract students. We really have to be thoughtful about how we're crafting the entire experience for the students to make it engaging and make them feel welcomed and make them feel like they can become a part of the university community. Students these days have more choices than ever. They know that. And also, they're prioritizing their mental health, their outside the classroom experience, their experiential learning opportunities. And so, we really have to present to them a total package of why is our college or university the place where they're going to feel at home for the next 4 years and be able to thrive as a student, as a human being, and as a future professional.
So, from your perspective, you're really making a switch from sort of an information repository, as what websites often become for higher ed, to a place that allows someone to feel belonging, to feel something. I mean, the best marketing makes someone feel something. The best marketing doesn't tell people something, it makes them feel something. Is that what you're feeling like the website has potential to do?
It absolutely does. And if you look at some examples, the best websites do help people feel something. They're, and I think that's why we spend so much time on our admissions pages and our home pages, is that we want to create this vibe that we're this kind of school, we're that kind of school. We are warm and welcoming, or we are outdoorsy and athletic. So schools do put a lot of thought into this if
Yeah.
they're smart. Um, However, I think that it's more critical than ever, just given the enrollment cliff and given all the other challenges that we're facing, is we really need to step it up a notch in not throwing more information out there, but giving people truly the feeling that they could be welcome here or that they're going to be happy here.
This isn't an easy transition to make all the time, right? And I know the way that you approach it is with a universal design for learning approach. So, for those who are new to the concept, could you explain what that is and its significance for a higher education website?
Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is a framework often used in instructional design and especially on the K through 12 level, but increasingly in higher ed as well. And it's a framework for inclusivity and for making everybody feel welcome in the classroom, be it online or in virtual space. And it's not a tight framework, right? It's not prescriptive, it's not limited to a particular discipline. It's more an overarching philosophy of how do we create educational experiences that are welcoming to all. And let's face it, when people are looking for the college that they're going to attend, it's an experience that is in the realm of education, and they're educating themselves about our schools. So that's the frame of mind that students are in when they come to our websites. And again, we really want to make sure that we send the message loud and clear to students as they're looking at our sites that this is a place where you are always going to feel welcome and included. So that's UDL's guiding principle, is to give everyone an ability to engage with materials according to who they are and according to how they prefer to learn or process information. So it's really important for university websites to do this, to follow some framework that creates that inclusive environment that allows every student to process information the way that makes sense to them, so that more students can engage with the brand online. So UDL has three core guidelines. You have to give students multiple means of engagement. What that means is you have to give people multiple ways of engaging with their emotions, the affective networks in their brains. You want to give them uh, variety of different emotional cues. And so on a website, that might look like lots of different photos. It can look like use of color on the site. It can look like the language that you choose. All of these have to reflect the same core emotion that you want to convey. So you want to make sure that everything you're putting together conveys the emotion that you want to convey, that is in line with your brand. You also want to give people multiple means of representation. So, again, that goes back to giving folks multiple different media and modalities for accessing factual information. So I've been talking about how university websites are about more than just factual information, and that engagement piece, those multiple ways of lighting up people's affective emotional networks in their brains, addresses that. But it's still really critical to give people the facts and information about what is your tuition, what majors do you have, you know, how big is your campus.
Yeah.
that that's still important. People are still looking at that. So
Yeah.
that's where we give people that information in multiple different means. It can be, you want text, you want graphics, you want video. Don't just put the information on there in one format and assume everyone's going to read it or watch the video. You want to repeat yourself across multiple different media, so students who are visually oriented can see it in a picture. Students who are verbally oriented can read about it. Students who like video, and nowadays all of the students really engage with video, can see a video about it. And then finally, and I don't want to, I want to open it up to more questions again, give people multiple means of taking action. So universities usually do the best in this score. You can talk to an alum, you can fill out a form, you can do everything via email and mail nowadays, or you can talk to real live human beings. So that last part of UDL, the how part, how do you achieve your goals? We're pretty solid on that as schools. It's those other two areas that people need to work on, the emotional variability in how you express it, as well as how we present information in a multitude of different modalities. And if we do that, we're going to engage with students much better.
It's so funny because as you're describing this, I do see colleges and universities employ these principles often on, say, an accepted student microsite or something that's tight for a specific audience. You do see a lot of these principles. Much harder to make this happen across the .edu, right? Across as an experience, a holistic experience across the edu. What are some actionable steps that marketers at universities can take to sort of integrate these principles? Program pages, for instance, are really important to that audience. So maybe the whole website might be biting off more than we can chew at first, But if we focus in on those sites, what are some of those actionable steps that we can take?
You're exactly right that schools, when you're looking at the microsite for admissions, they do a great job of this, right? It's engaging, it's got video, it's got testimonials, it's got all of these bells and whistles. And then you go into, say, not to pick on a particular department, but you go into the English department's website and it's got like 5 PDFs. So, and I can say I'm guilty also so my admin role, I run the online infrastructure and communications for the Brandeis University Innovation Center. And I'll be frank with you, Allison, there's times when I go rogue and come up with my own designs that are not fully on the template. We all do, right? We all do. So, how do we enforce that in different key websites? I think it comes down to education. You can't daily police every single departmental website, every sports programs and student clubs website. You do want to have a template that kind of mandates multimedia. And we have that at Brandeis. We have a core template that encourages you to integrate video, encourages you to use short text blocks and not a big wall of text, gives you multiple different options, very attractive ones for images. And these are standard parts of creating a website template nowadays. They're available to most people at most schools, but they've done a great job at Brandeis of almost like constraining your web design, that have to create those multiple modalities. It's a block construction mechanism that really encourages you to be thoughtful about how you're assembling a page, to include video, to include visuals. So that's one way, is on the template level. But I think at the end of the day, we also have to be really smart about the trainings that we offer to different departments and explain why this is important. And that's why I've become such a fan of UDL. I'm both a faculty member and an admin. And I know that as a faculty member, my main thinking is always around learning design. That's how I see things, that's my window on the world. So, using UDL is going to be easier to get people to apply best practices in web design and good web design principles than if you try to teach them a whole new discipline. Because at the end of the day, UDL has so much in common with just basic good UX. So use people's existing frame of reference to help them figure out how to build a better website for their departments and their programs, and they will.
Hey, it's Allison from the Application Podcast. Exciting news. I'll be at the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Hosted by Element 451, the Engage Summit is where AI meets higher ed. Sessions will focus on cutting-edge AI applications that are reshaping student outreach, enhancing staff productivity, and offering deep insights into ROI. This is not your typical conference. Trust me, I went last year and it was amazing. Think of it as a strategic summit where you'll learn from the best about leveraging AI and digital strategies in higher ed marketing. Imagine 2 days filled with hands-on sessions, real success stories, and the chance to network with top minds in the field. You're going to leave with practical, transformative takeaways as you learn how AI fosters a more personalized, efficient approach from recruitment all the way through student success. Oh, and the best part, the Engage Summit is incredibly affordable. Tickets are just $150 a person, but wait, it gets better. Use the discount code Enrollify50 at checkout and you can register for just $99. This early bird pricing lasts until March 31st. So join me and many of my fellow Enrollify Network creators at the Engage Summit this coming June. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you then.
That's smart. And I would think that education is a piece of it too. Not that they need to understand UDL better, but even understanding changing information consumption habits and
Yes.
things like that. If they understand that, which is something that might be more natural to the marketers in the room, right? We have an understanding of how people are consuming different media and digital media online. But maybe the faculty or the other administrators at the college who are participating in website content development, they might not have that same frame of reference.
They don't. I mean, just as I don't really know anything about physics, and the physics department would have me at a loss if I were to go in there and try to do their jobs, other people's jobs are not web design. And I think that as web developers and web designers and marketers, we often lose sight of the fact that we have our own language. There's this common belief in society that anybody can do marketing. Marketing's just
Yeah.
common sense. And we all know that's not true.
Everyone's clapping right now who's listening
We're
because
all
our audience is marketers. Everyone's like, yes, yes, everyone can do marketing.
and you're
We've
given
never heard that.
oh, we've heard that till the cows come home, and then you get
Yeah.
a flyer that somebody made in Word, and they just want you to make it look nice, and it's in
Oh my
Word,
goodness.
man. It's dude. So I think that even though we all know that it's nonsense that anyone can do marketing, at the same time, we will often lose sight of the fact that our field is actually so professionalized and so
Mm,
specialized that we truly need to translate our best practices that we're getting at, you know, at our conferences and through podcasts like this into language our audience can speak. And like I said, UDL has historically been primarily a high K through 12 modality, or a buzzword among K through 12 educators and among instructional designers, more so than among higher ed faculty and administration. But it's spreading. It's increasingly spreading. And so I think that if you want to speak the language of academia and get your websites across your edu to look good, reframe your best practices from a UDL standpoint, because that's what's going to get people to have that aha moment when they realize
yeah.
why you can't have 6 screens of text on your website and one 12 kilobyte JPEG.
Yeah. I really like how you're thinking about this, about how we need to leverage a way or an approach that our audience understands as marketers to get them to understand our challenge and what we know. I love how you're using UDL as that connection point between truly becoming more understanding of marketing, but leveraging a teaching philosophy and a teaching approach to get there. I just love that idea. And it is something that everyone who's listening, we all have this challenge of that disconnect between professional marketing expertise and people who think that they understand marketing. And I think you're right. I think that using something like UDL and that approach, I think it can sell people. I think it can help people come to an understanding together. So I really like that. I have a question about accessibility. We've talked about accessibility a pretty good amount on this podcast, and UDL feels related. So how is it related, and why are both things essential to be thinking about?
UDL comes from the accessibility community. It comes from the frame of mind of how do we make learning experiences as accessible to different learners with different abilities. So it has a strong alliance with accessibility, and it's undergirded with the concept that everything we do must be accessible. That's sort of table stakes. UDL is meant to take that one step higher. It's meant to be, what do you do when stuff has basic accessibility, like alt text on images, captions on videos, uh, and even accessibility itself, though. UDL is related to a whole concept called universal design. And universal design is build for accessibility to the maximum number of users first. Don't make it an add on. Make accessibility your first concern versus retrofitting things. So that's one of the ways in which accessibility fits into UDL. I think the other thing is, again, it's the mindset that you approach doing your accessibility with. So I'll give you a really concrete example. How many of us have found alt text on images that's something like man or cat? And that's
Yeah.
literally the alt text. And
Yes.
sometimes that's,
It's bare
yeah,
minimum. Bare
bare
minimum.
minimum, bare
Bare minimum.
minimum.
Yes.
And think about why we write alt text. It's not to satisfy Google, it's not to satisfy the accessibility police. It's to help somebody who's blind or visually impaired or otherwise using a screen reader to understand the full content of the website equally to someone who is sighted or who's able to see the website. So if it's a rich photo of a cat smiling on the shoulder of your university president and they're joking around and you just say man with cat, they're not getting that meaning out of that
Yeah. They're not getting
alt
the
text.
context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So UDL is more about sort of supporting uh, that spirit that we want to give everybody equal access to our content. And again, that goes back to how does our website make everyone feel welcome and seen?
I'm glad you brought up SEO because I do think that this is a powerful SEO strategy as well. So it's bonus. We want to be engaging with our audiences in a more inclusive way, making everyone feel welcome, making everyone feel like they can belong in this space. But the added advantage I have to expect is because the website is a better user experience, because the website is more engaging, because our things like alt tags are more comprehensive, that there's an added bonus here from a search engine perspective. Would you agree?
Absolutely. The SEO aspect of accessibility cannot be underestimated. So, Google has obviously, we're all very familiar with the Core Web Vitals report. And what does that Core Web Vitals report look at? It looks at the accessibility of your website. You can't rank well in SEO, you can't get a shiny 100 or 95 score on that Core Web Vitals report unless your site is accessible. And so, accessibility just from the bare minimum standpoint of are we going to do well in Google, which again comes back to attracting students, because if people
Yeah,
are Googling for a specific degree program,
exactly.
or you have to have good
Yeah.
SEO nowadays. It's so competitive to get students attention
Yeah.
on the web. So if you're not accessible, it's going to hurt you from an SEO standpoint, and that in turn is going to cost you enrollment. So you have to be
Yeah.
accessible because you have to do well in SEO.
Well, and let's imagine because this is what's going to happen. There's going to be less people searching for those things related to college. There's going to be less people doing it. So we really, really need to make sure our SEO is strong so that we're coming out high in on the results page because right now it's already competitive.
Yes.
Now picture there's going to be less people even searching for those phrases and those terms that we come up on. So it's only going to ramp up as the demographic cliff hits.
It is only going to ramp up. SEO is going to get more and more competitive in the higher ed space,
Yeah.
and it's also going to be ever more critical, therefore, for us to all do well in SEO. The other thing that has occurred to me, which is not strictly germane to the topic of UDL, but that's really important, is there's this tendency, this temptation to jump on trendy bandwagons. And I'm guilty of it
Mm.
myself. Like the number of times I've now
FOMO. It's
incorporated,
FOMO. Let's call it what it is. It's
it's
FOMO.
FOMO. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, if we're not talking about Chat GPT, and I'm guilty of it myself. I've put Chat GPT in the title of so many things lately. It's Chat
Clickbait.
GPT and petting your cat, or Chat GPT and eating a sandwich. Everything's Chat GPT now. But I know, it's like, what do our cats think of Chat GPT? It's getting out of control. So, that said, I think it is so important for us to take a step back and think, in the rush to make something trendy, um, are we still using UDL principles? And I'll explain why. So, a lot of times if we jump on a bandwagon, it might be a bandwagon where there's not a lot of, it's so new. I'll use like ChatGPT as an example, that we're tempted to put just any content up there to show that we're on this bandwagon and we're super trendy. And it's often in these cases that the aesthetics of a site take the front seat to inclusion and accessibility, because we want something shiny, we want something that looks pretty, and that's when we make a site look super pretty. And in I've been in web design, web development for over 20 years, and I don't know why it is, but the prettier and shinier and trendier a website, the more likely it is to have stuff on the back end that's beyond not accessible, like headers that are actually pictures that have no alt text. um, so, not that there's a immediate like one to one correlation, but there is a strong correlation between trend chasing and putting together websites that are slick and beautiful, but not very thoughtfully designed. And they don't need to be joined at the hip. They don't. There's no reason why you can't take the extra couple of hours and make a site that's accessible to all.
I am positive that everyone who's listening right now is thinking, okay, I'm sold on this idea of using a UDL approach. So let's think about it from their perspective. So if I'm a marketer and I'm looking to revamp the web presence with UDL in mind, what are those first steps that they should consider? What are those very first steps that they should take?
The first step I feel in every kind of website redesign where you're trying to apply a new framework is to audit your existing site using that framework. So go on your existing website and think, am I giving people multiple means of tapping into the emotions that our university tries to evoke with our brand? Am I giving people multiple different ways of getting the same core vital information so that something important isn't locked down just inside a video or just in text? So you're going to do a comprehensive audit, even if you think you're going to throw out the entire website. You might think, well, we're throwing everything out. We don't need to audit what we have. But what you have is reflective of the way you build websites. Unless everybody's gone and you've all completely radically changed the way you operate, that's how you build websites. That's your default, and you need to take a long hard look at, well, how did we end up with this header that's just a picture with no alt text? And just documenting that these things exist, that's going to be transformative and helpful. So first do an audit, and then as you design, always go back to, is this adhering to the UDL principles? Are we giving people that variation that will allow them to engage with our content no matter what their learning style, no matter what their um, preferences are in terms of the media that they like to consume, no matter how much time they have? And also, frankly, and I think this is really important from an equity standpoint, we have to remember, for a lot of low income students, their phone is their primary device, and they don't have access to laptops and desktops as much as students of means. So you want to make sure, in addition to all of the other aspects of UDL, are we being supportive of people looking at this mobile first? And everyone thinks they're mobile first nowadays. And some people are, but a lot of people really aren't. They just think that they are. And so you want to think about, am I, are we truly being mobile first in all of this? And test your templates, because that's often on the template level. So once you've done an audit, you've figured out where the mistakes were made in the past, or where you could do better, and where you're doing really well. Your next step is to then, as you're mapping things out, always go back to the principles of UDL and always think, are we adhering to them? And that can mean you're going to need some budget to shoot more video, to create more graphics, to write more text and polish it up so that it's, cohesive and well written. And so don't to and obviously we have to do more with less, but make sure that you've got at least enough time and budget to really adhere to those principles of giving people those multiple means of action, expression, and engagement. And that means multimedia. That's it. That's what it means. And you need that budget for video, and you need that budget for photography, and you can't keep using the same three stock photos of a diverse group of students in sweatshirts going, because honestly, you need to do something that's not cliched.
Well, and these are things that we are all already spending money on, photos and videos. So it might just be about spending it differently on video and photos. There's a lot of event coverage out there, right? In terms of photo and video. So it might just be rethinking how we're using our photo and video resources. And your point on mobile is well taken. It always strikes me that we are editing websites and developing the content on computers, on often with large screens, but we're really hoping that it translates down to that smartphone. So that's a point well taken. But I want to say it's reassuring too that you're not saying start from scratch.
Not necessarily, but you do make a good point in the sense that, yep, we all do have a whole lot of video, and it's all. I don't want
It
to
just
use
might
too
not be the
strong a
right
word.
video.
Not the right
Yeah,
video. I don't want to use too
it,
strong a word.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It
Yeah.
might not be the right video.
Not quite the right video because it's
Yeah,
often just, like you said, lots of event stuff or stock footage.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
informational. So if someone
It
gets
might just, yeah.
their information from video, and it's just a B-roll type of collection with music, it's attractive, but it's just decoration. It's not really adhering to UDL principles because it's not informative.
This could be a case of redeployment of funding instead of just additional funding, which might make this easier to tack on. Are there any resources or starting points for our listeners to look to for any of what we're talking about today?
Yes, the first thing you want to look at is the CAST website itself, udlguidelines.cast.org. That's going to help you learn all about the UDL guidelines. There's some really great posters that you can print out and utilize. So that's one of the first places that I would go. The other place, if you're not already reading, and I'm guessing most listeners are, is do yourself a favor and start reading A List Apart, because that is a great resource on equitable design. If you're not already following the Jacob Nielsen's website, I would definitely also look into that website because it's about accessibility and user experience. So it's really critical to stay on top of all of that. A lot of the content around UDL is also available primarily from the instructional design standpoint. So there's a couple of really good instructional design resources that talk about UDL as well. They're all linked from the CAST website. But for instance, there is some really great content from the University of Minnesota on the what and how of UDL with video. It's like a nice publicly accessible learning module, and I'll share the link to that as well. So familiarize yourself with the UDL guidelines using those resources, and then continue to delve into all of the great resources we have on UX. Now, from the SEO standpoint, my favorite source is the product moz.com's blog, moz.com. If you go to their resources tab, they've got a bunch of free mini courses, very comprehensive if you do all of them, on the principles of SEO. And do yourself a huge favor and start reading up on SEO. It's an ever changing field. And of course, it has a lot to do with many things outside of the realm of design or accessibility on the technical side. But start reading those Moz websites, and it's going to be very helpful for you.
I'll be sure to include all of those links that Christina mentioned in the show notes. Christina, thanks so much. It's been really enlightening to have you share your expertise on making higher education websites more engaging and more inclusive, and dare I say, more fun through UDL. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Allison. It's been great being here.
Thanks to our listeners for joining another episode of The Application.
We hope today's conversation inspires you to reevaluate your institutional website as a key tool for inclusivity and engagement and a way to combat that looming demographic cliff. Don't forget to subscribe to the application on your favorite podcast platform. We're here to keep you ahead of the game. The application is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed tech shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea. And they feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Day Kibbolds, Jeremy Tiers, and so many other of your favorite higher ed leaders. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.